So, my topic today is understanding the psychological and biochemical effects of stress on health. The next one is brain fog. So, the name itself says it's fog that's full of mist, and we will not know. Actually, foggy, we know it's so foggy, we will not be able to, when um, it's like what to say, it's we will not be able to see the person who is standing in front if it's very much foggy, that you all know that. But brain fog is something, so you can see brain fog, full cloudiness actually. That means too much stress literally causes the human brain to shut down and freeze temporarily. It's not going to shut down permanently. So it happens only if a person is going to die. But here it's like brain fog is something. It's very much it's going to be for a brief time actually. It's not an illness. It's not a psychological medical disorder condition or something. It's not a psychological disorder, but it could be paving a path for so many disorders if it's not taken care. Like, so it's like brain fog. What is it actually? Completely zoned out. Like if two person are speaking, two friends are talking to each other, and one might be talking, the other one might be, I mean, it looks like listening, that she is listening to whatever the other person is saying, but nothing would have entered into her mind. And she'll be asking, what did you say? So that's completely zoned out actually. So that's one of the symptoms of brain fog. Completely disoriented. We would have kept something that particular minute there, and the next second we will be thinking, where have I kept it? So this is completely disoriented. We don't know what's really happening. Loss of motivation, difficulty in speaking. Sometimes the person might be speaking, I mean, like they will not know what to speak, because the brain is not functioning normally for that particular period of time. And difficulty in following directions, temporary memory loss, like forgetting keys, and the next second we will remember immediately. So just these are some of the examples, like forgetting what you were saying, and confusion, anxiety. So all this. So brain fog is something, it's not a medical condition, but it is a term used to describe the collection of symptoms that affect our ability to think, often referred to as brain fog. The next one is bulimia nervosa. So, bulimia nervosa is an eating disorder. It is characterized by uncontrolled episodes of overeating, that is binging. Actually, this it's a kind of psychological condition. The person, she wants to eat more actually, but as soon as she eats or he eats, usually this affects women more, who is very much interested in their physique, how they look and all that. And so like they eat actually, they are very hungry, they eat, but after some time they will feel that guiltiness in them, like so ashamed of themselves. Oh my god, I have eaten so much, how can I eat? So immediately what will they do is they will take some laxatives, or to remove, I mean, or they'll take some medicines so that they can puke it out, okay, or something they will do, so that whatever food they have eaten doesn't want it to be in their system, that is in the stomach. Just somehow do something and they'll take it out. So this is exactly a psychological illness. Uh, so you can see this, she thinks as if after she has eaten her food, she has this I mean, she has this thought that she has put on weight. Okay, So this happens to everyone, but this is something so different. It will affect them very much psychologically. Like how, if you see, um, it can be triggered by some sort of stress. It could have been triggered by them due to some traumatic experiences, and strict dieting, or uncomfortable emotions such as anger and anxiety. All these could trigger bulimia nervosa. But still now there's no, actually they're not able to find out a proper solution, like why is it really happening. But it's really posing a threat, especially to women. So what's actually happening is they'll be under strict diet, and they just overcome this. Like when they go for some celebration, or if there's any festival or any marriage, they just eat like anything. Immediately what would happen is they'll feel that shame and self-hatredness in them because they have eaten food. Immediately they'll vomit. So again, strict dieting, it goes like a cycle. So the psychologist, they call this as the binge purge cycle, that is eating and purging it out. Okay, so this is how I wanted to show, because the medical professionals and psychologists, they really wanted to know what's happening in the brain of people like who are suffering from this condition, that is bulimia nervosa. So the MRI scans, it suggests the brains of women with bulimia nervosa, it reacts differently to the images of food after stressful events than the brains of women without bulimia. You can see here the blood flow is so much, actually there is an increased blood flow in a part of the brain for the controls, whereas there is a decreased blood flow in a part of the brain in bulimia nervosa patients. So they're not able to find out why really it is happening, but the only treatment is cognition therapy, psychological counseling, and all that. So this is one such case. So psychologists say that as they're not able to come to one conclusion, they say that bulimics may be using food to avoid negative thoughts about themselves. So people, they use they even use food as one of their weapons, or one of their stress, in their management of stress, to overcome their negative thoughts. So about this, how it is biochemically connected, so that we will be seeing it later. So exposure to intense and chronic stresses during the developmental years has long-lasting neurobiological effects and puts one at increased risk for anxiety and mood disorders. That's the one thing. So if it's left untreated, actually this goes to the next step, that is aggressiveness because of their mood disorder, because they are very moody. We will not know what will happen, when will they react, and all that. So the next is aggressiveness. The third one is it's going to affect their immunity, immune dysfunction. Fourth one, structural changes in central nervous system. That is just a negative thought, when it's going to be left out for a long period of time, it's going to pose a trauma in that particular person, which could change their nervous system itself. So this is how psychology and biochemistry, they are both linked actually. So it's very much, our thoughts are very much connected to our brain, which is going to affect us physiologically. And early death actually, because it might lead to suicidal thoughts, and all these negativism and all this will put a person finally to death. So these are 5 important things that actually these are the neurobiological effects and puts one at increased risk if they don't take care of themselves psychologically, that is mentally. So whatever we have seen so far are the psychological effects of stress on our health. The psychological effects, what is it going, what can it do actually? actually. So because of this psychological effects, we can see here how it's going to affect our physiology, our biological system. So first, the stress system. Actually, where is the stress system? The stress system is located in both the central nervous system and the periphery. So central nervous system, it is, you all know that it is composed of brain and spinal cord, and the rest of that is periphery, we call it as. So when a person is under stress, of course, it's going to affect their central nervous system, especially brain and other neurons which come under peripheral nervous system, because the stress system is present there. So what does it going to do? It's going to affect the growth of the person. Of course, it's going to affect their reproduction, metabolism, that is a biochemical reaction, synthesis and disintegration, immune competence, immune dysfunction. It could affect, because of all this, it could affect the person's behavior and personality development. Of course, that when a person is undergoing stress, of course, he can overcome that, actually, that we call it as adaptive response, which we have seen in the first slide. So that also could be actually genetic, environmental and developmental factors that play a major role. So the adaptive response of each individual to stress is determined by genetic, environmental and developmental factors. So, but changes in the ability to effectively respond to stressors, that is when we don't have adequate therapy, when our biological system, if it doesn't going to if it's going to be inadequate or excessive, or if it's going to give out any prolonged reactions with respect to stress, of course it's going to lead to a disease in the sense the person is not going to be in a comfort zone. So the stress response, it begins in the brain. So brain, we all know, it has hypothalamus, it has a pituitary gland, it has a amygdala, this is a brain stem. Actually, if you see, hypothalamus and pituitary play a major role with respect to stress, because the stress response, when I say it begins in the brain, actually it's going to target this hypothalamus, pituitary gland and also this amygdala. You can see here, you can just see this. This is the hypothalamus, this particular part pituitary, how so small, so tiny it is, but it has a major effect on our system. So amygdala, I have shown you now. It's an important part of the brain that contributes to the stress response. So what does it do? First, we should know actually what does it do. So the brain, if you see here, this is the prefrontal cortex, which is very much helpful in decision making, working memory, like when they work the memory and all that related to their work, and self-regulatory behaviors. They know what is right and what is not. Even they wanted to do something, they will have a control over them, like, okay, I shouldn't do, or okay, let me do, I should do. So all the self-regulatory behaviors, their mood, their impulses, everything actually is taken care of by this prefrontal cortex. So it also helps when a stress comes, it also helps make sure that it doesn't affect the body. So this prefrontal cortex plays a major role here. And as I have told you, hippocampus is very important, like memory of daily events, spatial memory, that is a familiarity with one thing, and mood regulation helps to shut off the stress response. Okay, so even prefrontal cortex also, even hippocampus also helps the person to memorize things, to make decisions, and to regulate their behaviors and all that. And this part, amygdala, I told you here, amygdala, an area of the brain that contributes to stress response. That is, this is the place where there's anxiety related issues of fear, aggression. All this happens because of the issues that is happening in that particular area, that is amygdala. Amygdala is a part of the brain that is responsible for that person's anxiety, fear, aggression, and all these negative things, etc., etc. It goes on because this amygdala is a part which turns on the stress hormones in our biological system, whereas this hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, they actually helps in shutting off the stress response and calming our mind, soothing our mind, so that we will be easily able to overcome our stress. Whereas this amygdala, if you see, it turns on. Something is going to hit that particular place of a particular part in the brain. It's going to trigger the production of stress hormones in the adrenal cortex, which is on the kidney actually. So this, we have done a scan. You can see here the unstressed brain and the stressed brain. So this is the unstressed brain. So as I have said, prefrontal cortex, it's very good to make decisions. It's very important. Healthy prefrontal cortex. It's very important to make decisions, self-regulatory behaviors, mood, impulses to control themselves and all that, shut off the stress response. See how smoothly it's going, like doesn't have any issues, no bizarre in their thoughts, like they know what they are doing, they control themselves. This is for they know when to react, how to react, when to stop and how to stop. This all happens like in an unstressed brain. That is, a person is able to think properly. In case of stressed one, you can see here and there's no signal. Actually, it's looking like a traffic jam there, because one is saying something, the other part is releasing something. They couldn't understand what's happening there. So what would happen? There is just a bizarre going here and there, giving. So 1 second the person will be okay, the next second the person will react, then again she will be calm or he will be calm. Aggressive nature, emotional burst out, everything happens when a brain is under stress. Okay, so that is because of the problems or a dysfunction in the amygdala, because it's activated. Amygdala is activated. So that leads to the stress hormones, production of stress hormones, which is making this particular person to behave differently. So this is how the stressed brain looks like. So the next one, this I wanted to tell you, because you can see here biological, the body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius actually. So when the person is very much relaxed, 37 degrees Celsius, you can see he's very much calm. But then can see here you can see here the stressed one, you can see 18 degrees Celsius, very chill, isn't it? You can see here the palms, the blue color, the light blue color. So here also you can see, that is, you can just imagine yourself, put yourself in that. You are afraid of someone, and like it could be a boss or anyone, like or if you have any issues with someone and you're getting a call, that person is calling you. For example, even if it's a principal or the teacher that you fear the most, actually, if they call you suddenly and your friends come and tell, so immediately you will get some jerk in you, like something is happening in your stomach. Immediately you start to shiver, kind of like. But if your friends come and comfort you, what happened when they touch your fingers, they can feel, why is it so chill? What happened? Is everything okay? So it's like you can see it's affecting the limbs. It's affecting, that is, stress has a control on body temperature. You can see here. So the temperature, it changes actually. So between 18 and 37 degrees Celsius. So that shivering, that chills, that sweating profusely, all it's because of the release of stress hormones. Okay, because the amygdala has activated the stress hormones, and the stress hormones are making the person to behave in such a way, because there is no proper signal everywhere. It's it's so confused and congested in our biological system, especially in the brain, in the nervous system. Stress response system, actually it takes place, as I have told you, its brain is very important because the stress response center is present in the central nervous system and the periphery also, which in turn, if it's going to turn on the stress hormones, of course it's going to affect all the vital organs in our biological system. Vital organs like heart, lungs, kidney, liver, of course stomach is very important. So we will see about stomach and brain, how they form a very great relationship. Actually, it's a very beautiful relationship that is between brain and stomach actually. So brain is the first one which is going to get affected because of the mental conditions, okay, because of our negative thoughts or whatever it could be. It's going to trigger, or it's going to activate, or it is one of the important reasons for the stress hormones to be triggered. Which organ? That is brain. Okay, so stress lead to rapid activation of the autonomic nervous system. So I was talking about brain now. So under that I told you about central nervous system and periphery nervous system. So under periphery, autonomic nervous system comes. Okay, so under autonomic nervous system, if you see, they are categorized into parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. These all we would have learned in our biology in 11th, 12th, 10th, but we would have just learned it's part of the nervous system. Okay, fine, there are two types under autonomic nervous system. One is parasympathetic, the other is sympathetic, but it plays a very, very major role in our life actually. So in our day-to-day activities, in our day-to-day life. So we'll move on to, first is parasympathetic and sympathetic. So parasympathetic, what is parasympathetic nervous system? Actually, parasympathetic nervous system, it has two important things in it. That is, one is the vagus nerve, the other one is the acetylcholine. So these two are very important in calming down the person. Even if he is under stress, also is fine. It tries its level best to make a person, okay, you be calm. Okay, so vagus nerve helps the person to make sure that he doesn't react so harshly, and also it releases out acetylcholine, which also makes the person think wisely. It is one of the neurotransmitters. And stimulating the vagus nerve, which carries sensory messages to and from the brain, it helps in strengthening the brain cells actually. So if the vagus nerve is functioning properly, okay, small amount, a very brief time of stress or an acute stress is okay. Vagus nerve will help that particular person by making sure that he is very much calm and quiet, doesn't react too much and all that. But this vagus nerve could get disrupted when we are stressing it for a long period of time. For example, like chronic stresses, distant stresses, or any stressful life events, if it is continuously happening in our life, then that is going to affect the vagus nerve. So in that case, first let me come on, I'll tell you what does this vagus nerve functions on. So you can see here see this particular nerve, okay, that is vagus nerve. It connects the brain to the other parts of the body. So what does it do actually is, it controls our mood, it controls our immune response, like when it has to be, like in case of disease conditions, our body produces antibodies. So all these will be taken care of by this. One of the functions of vagus nerve is immune response, helps in digestion, helps in heart rate and all that. But when this vagus nerve is going to get disrupted, then the scenario is going to change. Okay, So with this vagus nerve, when the body is not under stress, the vagus nerve sends commands to, that is like, even if it is an acute stress, not under stress, is like day-to-day life, our normal stress, a brief stress, that is more than enough. Like it commands the slow heartbeat, breathing rates, and it helps in digestion and all that. But in times of stress, so far we have seen parasympathetic nervous system will take care of this. Under that, we have seen vagus nerve and this acetylcholine and all that. But when this vagus nerve is going to get disrupted, then that particular nerve is going to be under the command of sympathetic system, so which produces the opposite effect of parasympathetic nervous system. So when parasympathetic is going to help us, but if the role is going to be taken care of by the sympathetic system, then vagus nerve is going to function differently. So that's where. So here you can see here, this woman, actually, we can just put ourselves in her shoes. Like if we feel that someone is stalking us or someone is following us, suddenly what would happen is our heartbeat increases. You can see her pupil, dilation of the pupil here, like increase in heartbeat, dilation, because there'll be increased blood flow to the essential organs, like such as the brain, heart, and lungs, and to the skeletal muscles, because this is being, now it's being taken care of by the sympathetic nervous system. So what does this activation of sympathetic nervous system? It rapidly produces many physiological effects. Our brain doesn't work if there is no oxygen. So there'll be an increased blood flow to the brain. So the brain can think actually whether to run or whether to be there or how to react. So that, for that, stress hormones also be very much helpful there. And also if you see blood flow to the heart, blood flow to the lungs, so that the person might actually breathe in and breathe out, okay, though it's not going to be a steady state. So dilation of lung bronchioles, increasing the heart rate and contraction of muscles. And usually this is one of the important thing, that is, I'm going to show you a picture. So you might be laughing some, but when we see, you can see here, because this is a one perfect picture I got, where you can see, I think she would have seen something very horror or something so scary. She's very much scared, you can see. So this dilation of pupils, you can see, okay, this dilation is because of the increased blood flow. This increased blood flow, how does it happen? This is because of the activation of the sympathetic nervous system. So why the pupils are dilating? That is to allow more light to enter the eye and enhance the vision to see exactly what's happening around me. Because she's already scared. It all happens involuntary. Suddenly, in a fraction of seconds, everything happens. Okay? So this increased when a person is following us, or when someone is going to come and hit us, or to beat, or anything under abuse or something. Suddenly our biological system behaves differently. We can even feel our heartbeat, our own heartbeat, when we run so fast from that place. So all this increased in blood flow to brain, heart, lungs, skeletal muscles, dilation of the lung bronchioles, so that the person will breathe well, and contraction of the muscles, and this dilation of the pupils, everything is being taken care of by the sympathetic nervous system. Now vagus nerve is under control of sympathetic nervous system. So vagus nerve will not be able to do its actual function, like calming down the person, because now this is taking hold of the vagus nerve. So it is behaving now differently.